Okay, I want to start this video off by first saying thank you to the Supreme Court for finally passing that LGBTQA have rights to get married and stuff, because people are people and love is love, and I feel like that's really important. But beyond that, now's kind of the reason I'm making this video. My name's Amy, and I'm transgender. And I've noticed that there's a lot of videos for transgender starting at hormone treatment, and I feel like it's really important for those considering they might be in this place or those that just want to learn to know that there's a lot more before hormone treatment that you have to kind of go through to get to that point. That's why I'm making this video. I am in the very early stages of transitioning. I am still going to therapy. I've only been to a couple of sessions. But even before therapy, there was a lot that I had to do to get to the point of admitting that I was actually transgender. So basically, I started to notice that something was odd a long time ago, but it was about probably 7 or 8 months ago that I really started to look into why I felt so out of place in my own skin. And I started kind of this journey of figuring out what was up with me by first looking into depression. I looked up clinical depression, like working woman depression. There's so many kinds of depression, but none of them really fit me because I don't really feel sad per se. I just don't feel super happy. And so from there, I was like, well, it's not depression, so maybe it's some sort of disorder that just makes me not react to things appropriately. So I kind of started looking into disorders that might cause you to have weird emotional influxes or to feel distant from people, but most of those disorders had so many other things that went along with it that it wasn't just emotional distancing. So kind of ignored the whole issue that I might have something wrong with me for probably about another month, and then thought, well, maybe it's something physically wrong with me. So I started going to the doctors, and they tested me for allergies, STDs, diabetes, vitamin deficiencies, literally anything that they thought might possibly be the reason that I feel out of place in my skin and have no sex drive and just don't feel right. And we kind of came up with nothing. So I was kind of back to square one, and I started off just thinking, well, everybody thinks I'm pretty, maybe I just need to make myself think I'm pretty. So I went out and did something that literally in the 27 years I've been alive, I've never done. I got a pair of stilettos. My boyfriend at the time thought I was crazy and actually took pictures and posted it going, who is this person that bought these heels? I didn't really, I think, understand why I was buying the heels, just that, hey, they're cool and I'm going to buy heels because maybe it'll make me feel pretty. So that was the first step, and then kind of stuck with that, tried to do my makeup a little more, and got lots of compliments that I looked good, but I didn't really feel much better about myself. So I went out and spent more money than I probably should have on a new wardrobe, some of which is what I'm wearing. And it was a really cute wardrobe. I mean, it still is. It's all in the bottom of my closet. But it really still didn't make me feel any better, so I took another weird step and started doing my nails, which is, again, something I have never done in my 27 years alive, except for the one time that my grandmother forced me to go get my nails done, and I hated it so much that I found nail clippers that could cut through the fake gel nails that you go get done at a salon, and then filed them off the rest of the way. So it was basically at that I really kind of had to go back to square one and go, okay, so I've pushed this super pretty look and I feel worse. I hated my nails. They were annoying. They were miserable. I hated my new clothes. They're super itchy. And that's when I came upon the idea of dysphoria. Actually, from a friend I was talking to. I'd never heard of dysphoria. I had no idea what it was. So I did a whole lot of research in that and went, yeah, this isn't me, because this totally is too much like me. It can't be a thing that I actually am dealing with. So I ignored it again and just tried to keep dressing pretty, and did that for about a month before I kind of just went crazy. And so I started sitting down and talking with a few friends, and they kind of told me, you know, it's not the first time you've thought this. You've always felt out of place in your skin. Have you considered you might be transgender? And it was about that time that I went, yeah, that's probably right. And it wasn't so much that I was afraid of the thought, that I didn't want to admit it was a thing that I could be going through. I've always been a huge supporter of LGBTQA rights, but I've never thought that I could be transgender. So I started doing more research, which I think is a really important aspect of finding out who you are. If this is something you think you might be going through, do research. See if it's, start off with basics. Start off, is it anxiety? Is it just plain old depression? Could it be something physical? And if none of these things add up, maybe it's time to try and educate yourself in something else, because it was only through doing lots and lots of research and talking to a couple of professionals that I came to understand that, yeah, it's transgender. And I understand it's really difficult, obviously for the reasons of, well, you've kind of got to start making steps and admitting it to yourself as well as everyone else. And one important thing to remember is, yeah, you might have people that aren't going to accept you. You might have family who's really religious, and trust me, I get that. My family is from the South, Southern Baptist, super religious. The women grow up to be the baby makers and the home takers, and the guys are the sports guys and the we make money people. So it's difficult, but there's help. And just where I'm at, there's tons of groups, but you have to look for them because they're not as easy to find as somebody else might be. But you can talk to therapists. You can just Google it and find a therapist, and if that's something you think it might be, they'll help you. They'll totally give you lists of groups you can go see, people you can talk to that'll help you get through this. So, on that note, these clothes are really uncomfortable, and now I'd like to introduce you to Eli. And this is me now. So I guess I should start off by saying the point in the transition that I'm at is dressing different. I find my chest. I'm actually a 34 double D, so it's pretty much impossible for me to get totally flat, but at least now it just kind of looks like I've got pecs, and if I punched you, it'd probably hurt. So other than that, I am in therapy. I've only gone to a couple of sessions. I finally found a therapist that I really like, so that's really important. That's really important. If you start therapy and you don't like your therapist, they're not going to be offended, because sometimes it just isn't really the style of therapy you want. A therapist I went to a long time ago wanted to hook me up to stuff and test how I physically reacted to questions, and it just felt really weird to me. So, you know, finding a therapist that you like is important, and actually going to therapy, it's really important to not self-medicate. Trust me, I get it. As soon as I realized this is what I wanted, I really want to not look like a girl anymore because I don't see myself as a girl. Um, but it's important to make sure you're managing your medicine appropriately. You're not overdosing, because if you overdose testosterone, you can put yourself into menopause, which kind of sucks. Um, so I guess from there, it would be important to let those who might be in the same boat as me, or those who might not get it, understand how I got to where I am. As far back as probably about the time I was 5, I used to have these really weird panic attacks. And it wasn't like I was shaking and my heart was racing and all this bad stuff was happening. Instead, the world kind of sped up and slowed down at the same time, and I heard a guy's voice yelling at me, telling me to do stuff, and I could never actually understand what was being said. And once I was old enough to realize how odd this was, I actually thought I was schizophrenic, because who hears voices and has this weird stuff happen? And it was my first therapist that told me that this is a form of panic attacks, and that the voice is probably someone you know, or maybe your own voice. And that's an odd thought, since I'm a girl, physically, and the guy voice was definitely not a guy's voice that I could place. So that was probably one of the first signs. The second sign that maybe I was transgender was in middle school. Everybody had this joke that I was a guy trapped in a woman's body. Knowing what transgender is now, seems pretty obvious that if everybody's saying it and I'm agreeing to it because I thought it seemed pretty true too, it should have been really obvious. But back in middle school, we didn't really have the resources that there are available today. Most kids didn't even know there was anything besides straight, and even beyond that, usually we knew straight, gay, lesbian. Some of us knew what bisexual was, but pretty much everybody in middle school, if you were bisexual, it was, you were just curious, or you didn't want to admit you were one or the other. It wasn't actually a thing. So that was a really big sign, looking in retrospect, that transgender's probably the right path for me. And so after doing a bunch of research, I kind of started to dress more androgynously, and kind of sort of started to act more the part. I mean, it really wasn't that hard for me because I've never been feminine, which is kind of why I had the nickname of a guy trapped in a woman's body to begin with. But, you know, I kind of started wearing more boyish clothes and wearing these cool hats and cutting my hair a little bit shorter every time I was getting it cut. And so when I started to admit this to friends and family, reactions kind of went one of 3 ways. Most people that had known me for a while, and some that hadn't known me for a while, immediately went, yeah, that makes sense for you. And there was pretty much no other questions. The second question was, do you have a name picked out? And that would be Elijah Reed. So that was a pretty easy one to answer. And then the third reaction was, mainly from family, I don't think that's really what it is. I mean, you've always been a girl. And I think how I really knew that I am transgender was when I was trying to explain to my mother that, yeah, it's not an easy thing to admit, and it's gonna be life-changing, obviously. But when she doubted me, instead of me doubting myself, I got offensive, and I started to go on the defense and be like, no, this is what's up. Like, You might not see it, but I feel it, trust me. About 2 weeks into me dressing the part more and kind of giving up on being a girl, everyone, literally my boss, my boyfriend, my friends, even my mom, who didn't really admit that this is what's actually happening, saw my confidence levels just skyrocket. And it took me probably a little longer than it took them to see that my confidence levels were going up. But then I really started to notice it because I finally could kind of tell that I was better than what I'd been putting forward. And then the other way that I knew that this is definitely going on for me is earlier today, actually, I tried to dress in a girl's shirt. Not in the video, like actually go to work in a girl's shirt. And it was so miserable. I like just looked at my body and was like, ugh, I have boobs. And that sucks. I actually went on break at work and went and bought a different shirt because I couldn't do it. I mean, yeah, a pen exploded on it, which was basically like karma going, yeah, this isn't for you. But I really needed to anyway because I just felt miserable in it. So I guess the important thing is, if you're going through this, there's gonna be a lot of questions for yourself, from family, from friends, from strangers who see that you're dressing a little bit different, and you're gonna have to answer them. Even if not immediately, you're gonna have to figure out how you're going to answer these questions. And sometimes it's as easy as typing into Google and being like, what does this actually mean? And other times it takes a lot of soul searching, because that's definitely something I've done a lot of the past month. And therapy, it's really important. And I guess if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments, or you can email me. I will put my email right in the description of the video, and any questions you have, I'll do my best to answer. And if I can't, I'll ask my therapist, because it's important to help everyone get answers, because this is something you can work through. It will make you feel better, and it's important to forget that you're not the only one out there dealing with this. And in closing, I'd kind of like to give a huge shout out to Isabella Bunny Bennett, because she's been a huge influence for me to admit that this is what's going on. And actually, she's the whole reason I wanted to make a video blog in the first place, because it's cool to see yourself change through it. And I think it's important to help get the message out there that you're not the only one. You're not the only one with doubts. And even if you're admitting that this is what it is, you're not the only one with questions that you're determined can't get an answer. So, thank you. And I will hopefully be posting another video in a week or two. Bye.